Hello and welcome to The Perch from the Wyoming Tribune Eagle. I'm Noah Zahn, the local government reporter here. This week we're bringing you a story from our crime and public safety reporter, Ivy Secrest, who attended a meeting last week that was a second meeting from a community group that was recently formed in response to a racist incident at South High School against one of the students there, and her mother went to social media for support and ended up organizing this group. And last week they hosted their second meeting and are hoping to organize a movement to push for change in Laramie County School District 1. So stick around for that. But before we get to that story, we'll bring you a quick local news roundup of what's been going on. I'm joined here by our state government reporter, Hannah Shields. This weekend you attended the Republican and Democratic caucuses. So what happened there?
So both the Republican and Democrat lawmakers had their caucuses over the weekend. The Republicans had theirs in Casper, and it was closed off to the public. The Dems had theirs at the state capitol here in Cheyenne on Sunday, and that was open. However, only 2 members of the public did show up, and that would be me and one other reporter. So not a huge attendance. But I would say that definitely the biggest news, obviously, is going to be on the Republican side, since we do have a Republican majority legislature. And they nominated their members for legislative leadership in both the House and the Senate. Which happens with every new legislature, and we're going into the 68th legislature next year. So we have on the Senate side, Republicans elected their nominees for legislative leadership. For Senate President, replacing Senator Ogden Driscoll, we have Senator Bo Beitman from Ranchester, Wyoming. We have Senator Tim Salazar as Vice President, and then Senator Tara Nethercott as the majority floor leader, which is also the number 2 position in the Senate. And she is right from here in Cheyenne.
And how about on the Democratic side?
On the Democratic side, considering we went from 7 to 8 Democratic lawmakers, with 2 still in the Senate and now 6 in the House. So our 2 Democrats in the Senate are Senators Chris Rothfuss and Mike Guru, and they held on to the positions they've had for a number of years because there's no opposition. There's only 2 positions available. So Senator Guru holds on to his position as Minority Whip in the Senate, and Chris Rothfuss continues to be the Minority Floor Leader. And then on the House side, the House Speaker is Representative Chip Nyman. It's important to note that coming out of the general election, we had a Freedom Caucus majority takeover in the lower chamber. And so all 4 leadership positions were filled by Freedom Caucus aligned members. So for House Speaker, we have Representative Chip Nyman. And for Majority Floor Leader, it is going to be Representative Scott Heiner. Speaker Pro Temp is Representative Jeremy Haroldson. And then finally, as Majority Whip, we have Representative Ocean Andrew. And then again, on the Democratic side, all the Democratic lawmakers continued in their positions. So we have Representative Carly Provenza, who continues to serve as Minority Whip, Representative Mike Yin as Minority Floor Leader, and Representative Trey Sherwood continues as the Minority Caucus Chair.
Great. Thank you, Hannah, for bringing us the latest on that.
Yeah, sure. And what's going on in your beat, Noah?
Yeah, so locally there's been some hot topics this week. Last night, Monday night at the time of recording, it's Tuesday, the day before we upload the podcast, but last night I attended City Council meeting, which was longer than usual. It was about 4 hours long because there were some hot topics there. The top one, I would say, is that the City Council voted to approve a downtown paid parking district. So that means that sometime in the near future, the parking will now be paid downtown. It's unsure what that will look like, how much that will be, and what that will look like in different parts of downtown. They're still planning on identifying the different zones of that district. And another interesting thing that happens Last Friday at the Wyoming Gaming Commission meeting, they approved the permit for cowboy racing to host live events in Laramie County at a horse racing track that they recently constructed, which is about 10 miles east of Cheyenne, just off the Hillsdale exit on I-80. And that will be the first full-size horse racing track in the state, actually. And it's a mile long. It'll host 12 horses. And the main thing here is they're planning on constructing the track so that they can host events. The dates they were approved begin in August of 2025. Those may change if they want to change that. But the fact that they have a live horse racing track means that they can also host off-track betting, gaming operations across the state. So they also were approved a permit to do that. So it sounds like in August, that track will be sort of a bare bones of what their main development plans are there. So it may just be some portable bleachers and some public amenities there. But I spoke with some of the cowboy racing officials, and they said that they hope a lot of their profits from the off-track betting facilities like historic horse racing and simulcasting, the funds from those will be able to generate more revenue to continue the development there. But that was those are the main issues from this past week that I covered. But that's it for our local news roundup. Thank you, Hannah, for joining me for that. Now let's head over to Ivy to hear what she's been working on. So now I'm here with Ivy Secrest, and you did a story this week. A couple of weeks ago, there was an incident at South High School for one student who was Black returns to her car after a volleyball game and found that someone had written in the dirt on her car, I believe, racial slurs and swastikas. And following that, her mother organized a community event, which I covered, where community members came together, and it was just sort of a meeting to figure out how to address not just this incident, but racism across Laramie County School District 1 and in the community at large. And last week they had a follow-up meeting after the initial meeting where it was very broad, just kind of figuring out what avenues they can take to address this issue. And I'm curious what happened at the meeting this past week. Did they identify routes to take for this, or just what happened there?
Yeah, so Jessica Little, the mother of the student who experienced the hate crime that kind of kickstarted all of this, really focused this meeting on coming together and getting to know the community better. Autumn Monfrey, one of the women there, told everyone that they privately are working on a plan of action that they won't really be ready to share until January. But for this meeting this past week, it was really about kind of launching the name of their new movement, which is Humanity Over Racism. So Jessica Little, the mother of the student who had swastikas and the N-word written in the dirt on her car itself, initially took to social media after that happened. So she went on Facebook after trying to work with the district and getting really frustrated with the lack of action that she was seeing from the district, the lack of information she was getting from them. She only found out about the incident from her student. The district did not reach out to her to let her know that that had happened to her kid, even though her child had told a teacher, and that teacher had told the junior vice principal. And so she took to Facebook and connected with Jasmine Jackson, who owns the Louise downtown. And basically, the two of them came together and were like, we need a space for mothers who are experiencing racism, whose children are experiencing racism, for people our age who want to address this. And they've formed this group. And Monday was really about getting to know everyone there. So they all clad in purple. They wanted to have a color for their movement. So clad in purple, they all got together and talked about their personal experiences. They talked about what they wanted the movement to look like. And really their hopes for this is they want to work with the district. So they don't want to work against teachers or against LCSD1. They want to work with them. Additionally, they want this to be a space for not just Black parents or parents of color or Black students, but for all the parents in the district so that they can band together to address racism. And then, yeah, I think really we'll have to see what this group ends up doing. They're not trying to be aggressive. They chose humanity over racism, to have kind of a welcoming moniker to go along with their movement. They really are looking to work holistically together to address a big issue in this community. I mean, these moms are describing instances where they have kids who are 5th graders getting called the N-word in their school hallways every day, and according to them, the district isn't really doing much. They have this instance of Jessica Little's daughter who, has the N-word and swastikas drawn into her car. They talked about being a parent in the community and walking down the street and being very aware of who's comfortable with their presence and who's not. So, their goal as a group was to work together. The district has said that they are against racism, but one of the things that this group has kind of highlighted is you can be against something all day. We're all against things that we see in our community. It doesn't mean that it's not there, and it doesn't mean that you don't have to actively work to fix it.
Yeah, and I remember whenever I covered it initially, Jessica Little said that her daughter, the school had organized they identified the students, it was other LCSD1 students who had vandalized her car, Jessica Little's daughter's car, and so they had organized an apology in a classroom in the presence of a teacher, and it was just the students apologizing to her daughter, and her daughter was unaware of that and said she felt very uncomfortable in that situation, and Jessica told me that she thought that was a very inadequate response to the incident that occurred. I was curious, were there any more updates from LCSD1 in their response to this incident, or is it still ongoing?
So the last time that I am aware of that the district addressed the issue was during a school board meeting about 3 weeks ago, where Jessica Little and her family and a bunch of other women that are involved in this group, Humanity Over Racism, went to the school board to talk about what had happened, to talk about wanting an update on what disciplinary actions are taking place in these instances, wanting policies specific to these instances. And the superintendent and the school board kind of just reiterated that due to privacy laws, they're not allowed to disclose what disciplinary actions they take against another student. So because these people were other LCSD1 students, they can't say, for example, they faced a 3-day suspension, or they had to do community service after school, or the apology was it and there was nothing else. They can't disclose any of that due to privacy laws. So we don't know exactly what disciplinary action was taken against these students. What we do know is that Jessica Little's daughter, according to Jessica, is a bubbly, kind, outgoing person who's been a bit more reserved since this happened to her. This, according to Jessica, was her first real incident with racism, like her first real interaction, feeling this singled out. And so what we know is that for her daughter, it has been really impactful. Whether these other students have faced consequences or not, the impact's still there. So I think that's really all we can know for sure.
And at the meeting last week, was there anything anyone said that stood out to you?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit earlier about how you can see something in your community all the time and be against it. Doesn't mean that it's not there. And Ambria Meadows Fernandez, one of the women who was there supporting the group, talked with me a bit about what that means for the education system and what these statements that the district releases really mean.
Someone in the education system will say, well, we're already against racism, right?
Yeah, or zero tolerance.
Correct.
Which is,
But if something is present in culture, there are certain trends and ways things show up. You can be against it intellectually all day, but what is the practice? What is the reframe, the cultural shift that happens to actually reduce? Because we're all against things that we witness every day.
What Meadows Fernandez is really talking about there is kind of course the district is going to release statements that we're against racism. Of course the board is going to say we're against racism. Most people in the community are going to say that we're against racism. The example that Ambria gave was we're against theft and shoplifting, but it still happens every day. And really what this group is trying to do is to address this kind of sweeping everything under the rug to say everything's great, everything's good, we're against this, we don't like this, so it must not be happening. From their perspective, that's not true. The other thing that this group really wants to illustrate is that they are with teachers, they're not against teachers. Meadows Fernandez also reiterated that they want this to be a movement with teachers, not against them. Talking about that a lot of teachers are women, a lot of teachers are parents, and this is an issue that affects everyone.
Most teachers are women, and most teachers are also parents. And so, I love the way that Adam and everyone frames this as a community effort, because teachers, just like the rest of us here, occupy multiple spaces in the community, often as parents, as well as mentors, as well as educators.
And so you mentioned they're not ready to release their official statement or official plan until January. Between now and then, have they said anything of what their plans are of, further meetings or, involvement in the community?
So they had a sign-up list at the meeting. They are texting and updating people as they have meetings come out. And then they also are having private meetings with leadership to determine what plan of action they're going to take. Really, what they want as far as a plan of action is they really want this to be collaborative with the district. They want to work with the district. They want to work outside of just the South Triad, which is where this initial incident took place. Autumn Monfrey, one of the women who's kind of taking on that, for lack of a better phrase, leadership role in talking about what they're doing and where they're headed. She really reiterated that this isn't just a South Triad issue, and that their goals here are to get a lot of parents involved, especially between now and January when they announce their next steps.
I think our biggest thing is that just understanding that we want all of the community involved on this. Like I had said, it's not just like a South Side issue. We want to see parents from East and Central here. And particularly, we don't just want to see people of color. We really do want to see all parents. And I think the other thing is just really, we want to work with LCSD1 to the best of our abilities.
Great. Thank you, Ivy. Appreciate you joining us on the podcast and sharing some of your reporting there. Be sure to check out that article in print or online if you'd like to learn more about it. And I suppose keep an eye out for further updates as that continues to develop. But that's all for this week of The Perch from the Wyoming Tribune Eagle. Thank you to Ivy Secrest and Hannah Shields for contributing to this week's episode, and be sure to tune back in next Wednesday for more.